Hey, what's up nerds? Let's talk about Xaku and how this frame is a thing. But first let me remind you that I stream every Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday at 7 PM Central European Time. So if you have questions about Warframe or would just like to hang out, the link is in the description. See you there. Alright, so Xaku, the broken frame, revised so many times that I've lost count. However, with some reading and a whole lot of testing and ranking this frame up to be where it's at now, I honestly have to say that Xaku is a powerhouse. I personally never put a lot of effort into Xaku, because his abilities were not really what I was looking for and honestly just a little bit weird to me. Nevertheless, here's a complete build, including weapons and of course a companion. I'll also briefly go over his abilities, why I chose a particular subsume ability, and the reasoning behind what makes this build work. Do keep in mind that this build is probably far from perfect, but it's the best that I could come up with for now. The build itself focuses on range, strength, a little efficiency, and some duration. The original build was somewhat of a mess. It didn't produce the amount of range needed to make Xaku effective on longer runs, so this video took a large amount of testing to get it to where it's at now. But first, the abilities. Spoiler alert, yes, I did use the helmet system, however I personally do not believe you need to. The subsume ability I chose is Ensnare, a simple way to group up enemies who dare to come in too close. With 66 meters of range, it's an absolutely devastating CC ability and can be useful in a pinch. I've also tried Pillage and some others, however nothing really seemed useful. The only ability I probably recommend subsuming on Xaku is Dispensary, especially with this build since it is energy hungry as fuck. So with Ensnare out of the way, his second ability is Grasp of LOHK. Grasp of LOHK steals the weapons of your enemies, effectively reducing incoming damage, since they'll have to walk up to you now. With the amount of range on this build, it targets enemies flawlessly and gives you about 30 meters of grab range, which is quite a lot. The initial duration is 15 seconds. Do not underestimate the damage this ability does either, especially in combination with Xaku's other abilities. Xaku's third ability, the Lost, Gaze. I'm strictly going to go over the Gaze ability, since this is the staple of this build. Gaze captures one target, which emits a zone that melts the enemy's armor, effectively armor stripping a large portion of the tile you're on. The range is 55 meters with a radius of 26.4 meters. Now there are ways to increase the range even more, however I don't find it necessary. It leaves you with minimal options on survivability. The duration is set at 18 seconds. Now last but not least, the vast Untime. Shed your outer pieces, which slow the enemies by 50% and increase your dodge chance by 75%. Meaning it is 75% more likely you won't get hit from incoming damage. It also freezes the duration of all your other abilities, so you can effectively have your second and third ability up for around 90 seconds. If you keep your cooldowns in check. Very useful, insane synergy, and allows Xaku to quite literally enter God mode. So now you know the basics of Xaku's abilities, specifically for the build I'm about to show you. So here's the build. Let's quickly run over what's going on here. We have brief respite for the shield gating abuse, briefly making us invulnerable when our shields go down to 0 from its max value. We've got Overextended and Augur Reach for range, specifically Augur Reach because it ups our shields when casting abilities. This ties into brief respite so we can quickly regain our shield gating whilst invulnerable. Blind Rage, Intensify and Transient Fortitude for power strength, since you need at least 200% power strength to get your third ability, Gaze, to fully strip armor. Primed Flow because we need a large energy pool, and Primed Continuity to have at least some duration on our abilities. As an Excellence mod, I'd recommend Cunning Drift to get even more range. I however couldn't be fucked to form Xaku again, since it's only a minor benefit. You can use Primed Sure-Footed as well if you feel it's necessary. On to the weapon combo. I have 2 weapon combos for Xaku, depending on basically my own playstyle. The first combo, Decido. Needless to talk about this weapon, it's a priming fest. Basically only using the secondary fire to apply a fuck ton of different elements to enemies, applying heat, cold, toxin, viral, and explosion status. The Kuva, also needless to go in on this gun since its main focus is applying status to as many enemies as possible. I personally own an impact based Nucor, which is far from perfect, but it goes to show that it doesn't really matter what pre-element you have. My elemental combo here is heat, radiation and viral. The Chronon Prime, also a staple when it comes to higher enemy levels. The stance supplies you with a ton of range, multi-attacks and a fuck ton of slash damage. Here's my build running for toxin and slash damage, since we already have viral and heat on our Nucor. Combo number 2. Primary, the Proboscis Cernos, with an all-electric build. Yeah, I know. Great for CC, especially when you decide to not use Ensnare or Larva. It's quite spammable as well and has great scaling damage. The Kuva Nucor, same build here. The Hate or Reaper Prime. A heavy attack build might not be necessary against armor stripped enemies, but it's super fun and allows for a bit of a more careful playstyle. Rather than just running and slashing, you have to group your enemies first and then end them all with one foul sweep. And last but certainly not least, the Companion. I went with a Panzer Vulpaphyla, simply because it doesn't die, procs viral for me, stores health for me when I need it, and opens up a mod slot when using Animal Instinct. I'm sure there are better builds out there, but this works quite well and gets the job done. Now we went over the abilities, builds and weapon choices. But how do we actually play the monstrosity called Xaku? It's quite easy actually. Coming up into the mission, the first thing you want to do is use your 2, or your second ability, for some self-defense. Then activate the Vast Untime to freeze the cooldown and become less vulnerable to incoming attacks. Lastly, you want to pick a strategic point on the map to cast your third ability, Gaze. While you have a lot of range, it's still important to pick the right spot, so you and your squad can decimate the enemies without even breaking a sweat. The ability combo would be second ability, fourth ability, third ability, and after that, just watch the cooldown on your fourth ability to recast immediately after it wears down. Or, take the L and recast it a second before it goes inactive. Weapon-wise, there's not a whole lot of variety until you're at level 4000-ish. Before that, you can easily just shoot some arrows and kill a bunch of enemies in one shot. Load up the Cedo for some devastating damage, or simply spam E. After level 4000, you might need to prime your enemies with the Nucor and start using your secondary fire on the Cedo a bit more. And there you have your God Mode Xaku. Granted, if you don't pay attention, you die. If you don't manage your cooldowns well, you die. Therefore, it's one of the more engaging playstyles and builds out there, at least in my opinion. Again, do take into account that these builds probably aren't perfect and there's more ways of playing Xaku than just like I explained it here. So try different builds, think for yourself if this is a playstyle you enjoy, and don't just blindly copy whatever I did, since it might not work for you. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, leave a like and subscribe if you did, and I'll see you again next week. By the way, unfortunately my internet has still not been fixed, so until further notice there will be no streams. Stay healthy, stay safe, later.